you have various websites that answer questions and all that. So I read one of these, I read it myself, where some guy asked a question that one guy goes to a barber's shop and he told the barber to shave his beard. And then at some point, after the guy shaved his beard, he has this realization that the shaving of the beard is haram. So should he pay the barber? So the response was, I don't know if that question's or the answer's still up there. The response was, the beard is a sunnah and blah, blah, blah. And it therefore, because the barber, he asked him to do something haram for him, it's forbidden for him to pay this. Now, if you're in certain countries or certain parts of the world where you can get authorities to sort of back you up in your position, well and good. Yeah. You try doing that here in Shoreditch and the guy's going to call the police at you.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in Shoreditch, because Shoreditch, the hipster beard is like quite in, isn't it? So there's a bit more, it's a bit more personal.
Hello, would you like to upgrade your tea and coffee providing? Go to East London, Quaker Street Coffee and Bubble Tea. They will provide better tea and coffee providing than your current tea and coffee provider is providing. What about downgrading? If you mention the podcast name, they will downgrade your providing to 10% off. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Welcome to today's podcast of the Islam Trinity podcast Unscripted. We've got Omar Suleiman and his co-host Salman Butt, and we're delighted to be joined today by a true OG in every sense of the word, mashallah. It's brother Babar Ahmad. Mashallah. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for coming, mashallah. Now, I know a lot about, like other people, I know a lot about Babar Ahmad, but he doesn't really know much about me because other than the whole kind of public thing, I had another extra connection with you, and that was I joined Imperial College the same, like a month after you were arrested, and so I was there during a lot of the campaigning, the Free Babar Ahmad in its kind of infancy. And I feel like I know a lot about you, and it might be a bit kind of almost creepy for you. Right?
I'm used to that now.
Yeah. But I mean, when Omar said that we've got a chance to get Mr. B in the seat, then I was very pleased, mashallah. So
I did try to avoid it. Mahmoud, he spent several months. I've tried to ignore it, and then he did the thing that Asians do, and he went through my family and said get him to reply to it back. I just kept on trying to avoid it, but it took a few months, but eventually pushed me into a corner. I had to do it.
Good.
I saw your Victoria Derbyshire, that was the interview, that was kind of maybe one of the few things you did once you got back.
Yes.
What I really liked about that one was, right at the beginning she was like, hi, thanks for meeting us. Something like, how does it feel being back home? And you were like, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. And she was probably up you wonder about that. This is what it means. She was like,
Alhamdulillah. I would say, when for myself, Babar, being introduced to Deen through you, when we talk about Babar, because alhamdulillah, I know you in a different way, and there's, I think what Salman was alluding to is there's the person who's known to everyone else, who people connected with, who people supported. Where does your story begin, really? Many people would probably know you from the point that you were arrested, forced, and everything that happened then. And maybe some people don't even know the details. I remember at the time when it first happened, you're trying to solicit support. People weren't interested, but funnily enough, there's a tipping point when suddenly it hits mass, and then everyone wants to support, the cause, alhamdulillah, and people got to know you. But I guess, would you say that there's, in terms of yourself and your personality, there was a Babar before prison and a Babar after? Or do you feel that it's the same person, but perhaps different facets of yourself have been unlocked?
I think, so in some ways, I'm the same person. So people who knew me before, in terms of my personality, how I am, that part of me is the same. And I'll say you remain the same person, but your worldview changes, your the way you look at the world, that changes.
Part of that's natural for anyone growing up anyway, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And then anything significant that happens in your life, you don't know, is it because of that or because just I'm older and more mature?
Muhammad Ali, he said that a man who sees the world at the same way at the age of 50 as he did at the age of 25 has wasted 25 years of his life. So you do mature, but in those 11 years, I didn't live 11 years. I probably lived the life of 100 years. So hence the bald head. I finally got out of the denial, and I decided. I struggled with it for a bit. Then I just spoke to Rahim Jung, and he said, "Look, man, just make the plunge." And then
you used to have a lovely mullet, Baba. Huh? You used to have a lovely mullet.
I do, yeah. That was back in the day. So if you got the mullets, then
my mullet is in
then
my
enjoy
heart,
it now. But I just thought it's about time to
embrace
my other ego, also known as the singing dentist. So
got bars, different sort of bars.
Yeah.
So when did you meet Babar? So you've known him for decades, right?
Babar, I met. I was 11 years old and went to pray in our secondary school, and Babar was in the upper sixth. I was first year.
Wow.
And that's when, alhamdulillah, the first time.
So you radicalized him? He radicalized you?
No, Umar radicalized me.
To fried chicken.
Against entrepreneurs.
Alhamdulillah. No, but
I got good memories of Umar and his brother.
Yeah.
So even though I think it was just that 1 year that we spent together.
That's right.
And then we used to have study circles, and he's from my.
Remember anything embarrassing about
from my
him?
ends? I don't, to be honest with you, man. No. Only good things about him and his brother. Always smiling face.
Come on.
Him and his brother, always smiling face.
No need for diplomacy here.
I can't do that, man. Can't throw him under the bus, man. He's from my ends.
No, what you mean? There's nothing to say, isn't it?
Yeah. No, because I'm thinking ahead because if I spill the beans on him, then he might be able to do it on me. I mean, with me, there's like no beans left to spill. It's like all out there in the public. So for me, things only get better. But for him, he's like got a reputation to protect. And
subhanAllah.
Good memories of Umar and his brother.
And Babar, alhamdulillah, likewise. I think my first experience of Islam outside of the masjid was through the circles. And when we started off at in the house, Franciscan Road, then we moved to Darrington Road, alhamdulillah. And it was just completely, I think for me at that time when you were young, being amongst brothers, elder brothers who were looking out for you, that sense of brotherhood, I've failed to find it since, if that makes sense. There was a real rawness about the brotherhood, alhamdulillah, that you're there for that reason. And really did feel like our elders were looking after us. It's something I really feel sorry for, especially now.
It would be interesting to compare how you both regard that era. So you were maybe young, teenage kind of years. You look at that period of your life fondly. It could be because you were young and you had that belonging and stuff. Do you look at that? So what are we looking at here? Like early 90s? Is that when you look at that period with the same kind of fondness, or some people look at that period as quite negative, or
so I think that decade, and by decade, if I just expand it a bit, from 89 up till September 2001, those 12 years, I think they were the defining decade for the Muslims of this country.
Really?
Wow. Things that, and I also tried to go back into the last few decades before that as well, even before I was born, and I wasn't able to find something with as much things that happened, so as to say. So starting from the Satanic Verses. So for those who don't know, there's an author by the name of Salman Rushdie. He wrote this book called the Satanic Verses, which basically insulted and mocked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his wives. And there was protests, there was demonstrations, there was a lot of things. So starting from that, which was like early, I think 89 or end of 88, say early part of 89, and ending at September 11, the amount of things that happened in those 12 years. You had the war in Bosnia, which for us was, now Afghanistan was ending, but that was
the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan.
Yes, so that ended in 89, and then over the next 3 years, the communist regime was conquered. But Bosnia was from 92 to 95, and that was very, it was very close to home. So you could literally, in 48 hours, you would be on a bus from London, Victoria to Croatia. That's how close it was. You had wars in Chechnya, in Kosovo. You had the air of, it is he's one of these French, well, the French anti-terrorism experts. They used to call it Londonistan, which is I have to say, is quite funny, but it's quite accurate. It was London. The London.
That used to be the name of an email group I used to. Some email circular I used to get.
What in the
just Londonistan, just events that are happening in London.
Okay, so that must have been in the early noughties, but that's how it came out. So you had basically, the war had finished in Afghanistan, so you had many people from other Muslim countries, mainly in the North African and Levant countries, who they weren't able to go back to their countries after the war ended in Afghanistan. So it was like a fashion to well, I mean, some of them, I wouldn't say fashion, they were doing it. Some of them, it was a fashion. Some of them, they did it out of need. They had nowhere else to go. They went to countries, European countries, to seek asylum. And London, you had everything and anyone that was there. So that period, which ended with the September 11 attacks, what happened during those, I think they defined, and anyone today who wants to understand why the Muslims in this country, why the community is the way they are, or why hundreds of British Muslims, they went to join ISIS, for example, the roots, you need to know, you need to sort of understand what happened during that period, and we need to talk about it.
So what did happen in terms of, okay, there's wars happening, Muslims are ostensibly being victimized abroad. What impact did that have on you growing up here? So you saw that on the news, and what you grew kind of angry at whom? Where did you direct your anger?
So I think, I remember
or your
when
colleagues and friends.
So I remember when it's important to remember. So in those days, just to paint the picture, there's no phones. Like, there really are no phones. Not like your parents don't let you have it, but there's no phone. So if I want to hang out with Umar, I'm going to ring his landline, house number, speak to his mom or dad or whatever, and say, is Umar there? And mom will say that, no, he's not there. And okay, when he comes back, can you ask him to call me, blah, 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 and he'll call me, then we'll arrange to meet up, whatever. There's no phones.
You'll arrange to meet up at Woolworths or... Blockbuster video.
Even Woolworths are set up. No, Woolworths, not Blockbuster. I think Blockbuster came later on.
We went into the Blockbuster crowd, bro. You learn as the story unravels.
When you had when you used to go on holiday via Thomas Cook.
Thomas Cook. No, I never saw that. Thomas Cook and Pontins and all that. It wasn't quite our crowd. So in that time was. So there's no social media, there's no YouTube, there's no internet, and you're just hearing about things through, sometimes people might be giving out newsletters outside the mosque, and I remembered, Hizb ut-Tahrir in particular, they were known for, like, you'd come out of Jummah, and you've got this it's like wall-to-wall A4 sheet of all of these things. So, and apologies if I'm going to be struck down, but anyone saying this, all I would read is just the title. And then it would be put back on the mosque or something like that. Then you had, but you would find out sort of what was going on, through these things. You had newsletters that, people would come and talk and all that. There were relatively few, there were a few sort of, I can call them, influential people. Yeah.
It was also the time that I guess the second generation were kind of reaching maturity. Any earlier than that, they probably weren't old enough. So you now had people who were speaking in the English language being able to, articulate what was going on as well. I don't remember that many English speakers, normally people from the Indian subcontinent coming talking about Islam. But around that time now, we had an emergence of people speaking in the English language as a medium. About Islam and also a lot of these other topics. Yeah.
So I think around that turn of the decade, so towards the late 80s, so some of the key personalities that were that were active in the scene, let's say London, for example. So you had Abu Muntasir, who he later went on to establish Jimas, and he used to run this group called Hisam Harakatul Islah Shabab al-Muslim. And he was a very charismatic, very captivating speaker, articulate.
So the movement for the rectification of young Muslims.
Yes.
Yeah.
So his thought was more how can I say? I mean, they used to identify. They used to call themselves Salafi. So at that time, there was only one type of Salafi, if that makes sense. Then you had other groups that were, you might call them like the Muslim Brotherhood type groups.
Yeah.
So you had young Muslims, or you had Jamaat Islami. They were more like the Pakistani and the Bangladeshi
versions.
But they had sort of youth wings. Then you had Hizb ut-Tahrir. So this is not amongst the foreigners, but amongst the Muslims,
the domestic groups
of this country. Then obviously you had Sufis, you had Barelwis, you had Deobandis, you had various groups like that.
But you still have that, don't you? The same kinds of groups.
I think there's many more, but in some ways there is much more unity now than there was there. So the defining the biggest event of that period was the war in Bosnia. So everyone, and I remember when the war began in ~92, so I was coming on TV. But
can you describe it for some of our younger viewers? What it meant? What does the war? A summary of the war in Bosnia? I mean,
so people sometimes when you talk to people today, they said, "Oh, you mean like Syria?" And I say no, it's worse than Syria. But no, it's the same thing. It's the same. And before I say this, I want to say that it's for the one who's killed. It makes no difference whether you're killed by a missile from the air or whether you're killed by someone slits your throat. So this is not without with any respect, but things happened in Bosnia which have not happened since and that I'm aware of, and I stand to be corrected. And I went to a number of war zones during the 90s, not just Bosnia. I actually went there. That things like that have not happened since. So you had mosques, for example. Mosques were targeted, and I recently went back to Bosnia after 20 years or so. So you had something like 600 mosques in Bosnia were destroyed. Pages of the Quran were used as toilet paper, as excrement. Religious graffiti was put on the walls. Genitals of imams were cut off. Pregnant women, their fetuses, bodies were cut open, and the fetuses were taken out and replaced with pig fetuses by Serb doctors. In some cases, they would just pull out the fetus. Rape as a policy. It's not like you're not talking about a group of rogue soldiers. It's actually part of the policy because they wanted to change the bloodline. So you had massacres of young children, of babies, of women, actually targeting them. Not like they happen to be collateral damage, but they're actively targeted. So the word in London, in Britain, amongst the Muslims of Britain at that time was, is Britain going to be the next Bosnia? So a lot of people, they weren't just shocked by the extent of what was happening in Bosnia, but there was that sense of, if it's happening there on our doorstep, then it might happen here. So
would you say you would think it would be less surprising for you if it happened, something that happened here, because Bosnia was seen as like the Bosnians and the Serbs were very, for centuries they lived side by side, and they say that there was a lot
more
integration.
This is the thing that they've said about the Bosnians.
But there was something, but when Muslims here, they're ostensibly or clearly and obviously from a different part of the world, different ethnicities, there's racist element as well.
I think there's a number of factors that led to what happened in Bosnia. So at that time we actually believed it. Now looking back, with all the challenges that we have and the problems, the difficulties that we have, I think that's pretty far-fetched. So you see, it's difficult to look at history from the lens of today. And that is difficult. And a lot of people, they'll try to do that. So you have people doing it all the time we have this with the notion of jihad, for example. Oh, they call this like this, you know, a group of jihadists. They went and blew up a nightclub, for example. And I spoke to some journalists, actually one from the BBC. I said, why do you call them jihadists? Oh, it's just a term. I said, I take offense that you call them jihadists, because this is not jihad. I had friends who were killed in Bosnia. A lot of them, no one even knows their name. They fought on a battlefield with an army. They went to protect innocent people. And I find offense that you use that term, you use any relation of that term to link it to people that are going and doing the thing that jihad is supposed to protect you against. And so it's difficult. You can look at, okay, Nelson Mandela, he's like the greatest man that's like ever lived, in like for 1,000 years and whatever. He was a terrorist. So, but you can't look at, you can't look at history through the lens of today. You have to somehow try to put yourself, and so that's what I'm trying to say is that we actually believed it. So when we were helping, so there was people that went to Bosnia. I went to Bosnia as well. A lot of people from my area, and Umar must remember that.
Yeah.
A lot of people went, and as the caveat, in those days it was completely legal for you to go there. You could just get on and I remember one particular time we got stuck coming out, and we needed help from the I think we contacted the British UN forces. Then I spoke to the sergeant. I gave him my passport number, and then he said, "Okay, we've got clearance to bring you back." And then he phoned me back, and at that time we found another. So in those days, it wasn't. It's a completely different time frame.
And there was no issues with anyone who went and when they came back. This is the thing. Exactly, and this is the thing people seem to...
A lot of people went. I mean, Abdurrahim Green, he wrote an article, returning jihadis aren't a problem, I used to be one.
Yeah, this one I'm saying, I had the difference between ISIS versus the people who went there. We'll cover it later, but in terms of even the type of person, in terms of being educated, etc., their background, the way the government's done the narrative now is anyone who's gone there, they're a threat when they come back. But it was never the case, because people were going for jihad, alhamdulillah. They were going for different forms of humanitarian support as well.
But the argument is, though, that they went there, they got kind of indoctrinated with, I don't want to say radicalized, but that's what they use, indoctrinated with some kind of ideology that paints certain kind of cataclysmic or apocalyptic pictures about Muslims vis-a-vis non-Muslims. And how much truth is there to that, or do you completely reject that?
No, I think there is some truth in that. But again, you're talking about different eras. So in Bosnia, for example, and it's also interesting, something else that happened at the start of that decade is this concept of jihad. That was the first time, around the early 90s, this concept of jihad is not just a war that you're fighting to protect innocent people on the battlefield or whatever, but you are like you're able to kill women and kids, and that is also jihad. So that was actually, so if you look in the 80s, and if you look in the 70s, if you look at like the problem that happened, like the Israeli Palestinians, you had incidents, you had that Muslims, they went and they they killed women and kids, or through explosions or shooting or whatever. But it was rogue groups who did it. It wasn't done as like a policy of this particular group of people. Yeah. So this began in early 90s. It started in Egypt with the Jamaat Islamiyah, the Jamaatul Jihad groups, where they came up with some justification. They started to do it.
First time the tourists were attacked.
Tourists came a little bit later. I think Jamaat Islamiyah, I think they attacked them in 97.
So attacking civilians became... in the kind of justification of some groups, in the modus operandi of some groups, attacking civilians became like a stratagem of the war.
Yes, but that was the point I'm saying is that was the first time it happened. And I was talking to it's not important who it was, but I was talking to one of the like proponents of this thought. I was having a discussion with him, and amicable discussion. I wanted to understand, and I said, okay, you promoted this thing. help me. So, what is your understanding of this thing about targeting women and kids in war? And he said that this is the asl, this is the basis that in jihad you're allowed to do these things. But so I said to him, I said, okay, I have a question then. If this is the norm, then why is it that we don't see this happening in Islamic history from the time of the Prophet through 14 centuries? We don't see it sanctioned from the leader or the commander of a group or army, and we only see it
the modern period.
We only see it in like the late 90, 91, 92, 93. That's when it begins. So all of those scholars, so none of them like clicked on to, hey man, this is like the main ruling. You know, it's like you're not allowed to join Asr with Maghrib, for example. So if someone today starts doing that, you'll be like, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh no, but this is the Asl. So what are you talking about? You know, so no one discovered this except 1990. Like what happened? And you know, I wasn't really, you know, you can't give an answer to that because it didn't happen. So
usually the groups that now justify targeting women and children and so forth, they don't. I don't see them arguing from the point of that it's Asl is normal anyway, but they kind of argue that, well, they do it, so we're just responding in kind.
Yeah, from when the fog of war, then you're allowed to fight them.
No, you'll find that it's more than that. So some of them, and some of them don't actually know. Some of them subscribe to a particular ideology, and they think that it's just tit for tat, and they're doing it for us. I mean, the Serbs they cut open the fetuses of Muslim women, pregnant Muslim women in Bosnia. So if we believe in tit for tat, are we going to start doing that? As Muslims, we stand for something which is superior. Superior morals, superior ethics. We stand for something that is greater than all of these things. So
I'm saying from their perspective, from their arguments.
No. Some of them, yes, and some of them is.
I mean, that's kind of why you have ISIS and that kind of stuff that reach the kind of depravity they have, in that, you know, setting fire to those Jordanian pilots alive, for example. The way they justified that was, look, you know, they threw a bomb or whatever, so we're going to do the same to them. Yeah, obviously, it's completely haram, but that was their justification.
Justification, it always comes afterwards. So there's an emotional reason for this. So one thing I actually wanted to touch upon is about, you're talking about how, you know, the government saying that these people, they go there and they radicalize to like an ideology. It's not quite. It doesn't quite. So there is some truth in that. That does happen now. You know, wasn't happening in like the 90s, but in the early part of the 90s, there is some truth in that. But more often, what happens is the psychological effect that war has on a person. So you go to war. So I went to like I went to Bosnia. I went to a number of these places, and you see things that most people will not see. So you see death, you see destruction, you see dead bodies, you hear accounts of atrocities, you have a gun in your hand, you have that power, you have all of, you know, you see your friends killed, you see that your friends injured, you see people with one arm and one leg, and sometimes you got to help them, like, you know, attending to their toilet needs or whatever. So one of the biggest things, and soldiers who, I remember when I was in the Supermax prison in America, I used to talk to, there was a lot of the officers there were former Marines who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, and some of them were like decent. You could have a decent like conversation with them. And one of the biggest things is you have this thing called survivor's guilt. And so there's one particular an expert called Dr. Marc Sageman. He was actually a defense expert in my case in America. He's an American. American psychologist, and he used to work for the CIA. He was in 1986. He was like the CIA head of station for the CIA in the Soviet Afghan Jihad. So he's written a few books, but one thing he said people don't fight for a cause, they fight for each other. So here's one person, you've gone through all of these experiences. War, death, destruction, killing, your side killing other people, people being killed, innocent people have been killed. All of these things have happened. You build relationships with people. One of them is killed now. Now, for some reason, you need to come back. So now you come back, and you have this guilt that here I am, enjoying Assam milk tea with tapioca, and
from Quaker Street.
From Quaker Street.
Coffee and bubble tea.
Coffee and bubble tea, yeah. gave the shout out there. I didn't get paid for that. I just got one Assam milk tea with tapioca for that. You're enjoying your nice, comfortable life, but your friend was killed there.
Yeah.
So part of you does not want his death to be in vain, so you want to continue that legacy. Now, in our case, we came back, and I came back, and we came back, and okay, for us, I came back from Bosnia, and the next thing was, okay, there's a war in Chechnya. Let's go there. So that's where I was able to put my, like emotions and whatever. Other people who don't have that, or who have been exposed to different things, they might think, okay, my friend was killed there, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to hire a van, and I'm going to fill it up with knives, and I'm going to drive over London Bridge, and then I'm just going to get out and just start stabbing people. I don't know who they are, what religion they are, what they think. I'm just going to get up and do that. He's not doing it for an ideology or a cause, because there is no cause or ideology, not in Islam anyway, that sanctions that. He's doing it for emotional reasons.
Yeah.
He's doing it due to a lack of guidance. He's doing it because no one is allowed to talk to him about jihad because of this prevent thing, which is completely shut down debate, where no one is allowed to talk about. I'm probably the only person who's allowed to, talk about jihad in public. Because my case is being resolved in a court of law.
Yeah.
But so people, there's a lot of emotions that they go through. And if there was a means of people helping them to process these emotions when they came back, some of those people, they can be quite dangerous. They can be quite dangerous, and it's not an ideology. It's like emotional reasons that you.
Generally speaking, when it comes to looking at the stats, we often forget. I mean, as a Muslim, we all have that. We hold our own to a superior moral standard, like as you mentioned, right? Even if one Muslim does some kind of crime, we think that's one Muslim too many. But that sentiment often gets hijacked by people with a malicious intent who try and overblow the kind of
effect of it.
The scale of Muslim terrorism or crime, political violence, that kind of stuff. So if you just look at in the UK, for example, there's 3 million Muslims. Not including the illegal immigrants, but 3 million according to the 2011 census. They say just 1% of all human beings generally are psychopaths, right? 3 to 4% are sociopaths, so kind of pathologically unable to empathize with someone else, inclined towards, antisocial behavior and so forth. So you're looking at, and just the Muslims in the UK, to have our fair share of
nutters,
you'd have 30,000 psychopathic Muslims, and like up to 120,000 Muslim sociopaths. So when they do react in a highly antisocial way, they're obviously going to use the language that they know. They're Muslim, they're going to justify it with their ethics, use their language and so forth. So that's where the problem comes when someone with a particular agenda, they force a mic into an imam's mouth and says, do you condemn these Muslims doing X, Y, Z? Of course, he's going to condemn that because he holds Muslims to a higher kind of moral scrutiny. But his statement, condemnation, the statement against these kind of actions, they're going to be taken to spin a narrative that demonizes his own children.
I think the best way to tackle this is just stop apologizing, man. Because the people who hate you, they're going to carry on hating you, no matter what you say. Even if you get down and you kiss their feet, they're going to keep on attacking you. Oh, you people are terrorists. You know what? You believe that, bro? Yeah, I do. Okay, well then we're terrorists. Oh, you people just want to go and I remember there was an officer. He had the decency to actually come and ask me. So I was in a prison in the UK, and it was a senior officer, and so I sort of would talk to him. He was a decent guy. Like you have, even amongst them, I think amongst prison officers, the percentage of psychopaths and sociopaths is probably much more than
either they're attracted to that job or because of the job they.
I think most of them are psychopaths. a few of them are not just good people, but very, very good people, very decent human beings. And, you know, I met all sorts. You know, I met the psychopaths and I met the decent ones. So this guy was one of the decent ones. And he said, Baba, Barbara, can I ask you something? I said, sure. He goes, I've been seeing you now, like you've been living here on this particular wing that I'm the officer for. And I've known you for like 2 years now. Especially when you're like in a small environment, then you know the officers, because you're spending more time with them than they're spending with their own families and such. He said, I see you're a nice guy. I just can't imagine why, for the why would you want to kill me or my family? So I said, okay, let's sit down. So he sat down.
Because you're infidels.
And I said to him that, I said, who said I want to kill you? So I tried to sort of get it out. Where is this coming from? What you got? I said, could you see? I said, you haven't done anything to me. Could you see me harming you in any way? He said, no, I couldn't. I said, then that for you, the person that you know, is what should be more powerful than anything that you've heard anywhere else. And he wasn't saying it because someone in the media said, oh, Barbara, that wasn't even the allegations against me, that he was involved in some plot to kill people, whatever. But he was just talking from this general thing that, oh, if you're in prison for terrorism, then you must be, you must be out to get people, whatever. So I sat with him and I engaged with him. But really, I think a lot of Muslims here, they spend a lot of time trying to apologize, trying to defend who they are. And I remember Salman al-Farsi is that once some of the polytheists, they came to him and they mocked him. They said, look at your prophet, look how stupid your prophet is. He even taught you how to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
So instead of bringing out statistics from the American Journal of like, of like science and but in 2002 there was like this and that. He said, you know what? You're right. And he told us to sit down, not face the Qibla, and use an odd number of stones.
Yeah.
So there has to be this thing of, so what? Stop apologizing for your religion. Someone comes to me that, oh, you believe in this, you believe in that. Say, listen, it's my religion. I believe in it. I didn't make those laws. Okay, if I was to make them, maybe I'd make them a bit differently. I didn't make those. So once you sort of get that thing, you want to believe that, okay, no worries, go ahead, believe that. Yeah. There's still people becoming Muslim. There's still people who interact with Muslims, real Muslims, in their workplaces, in their universities, in their businesses. They know what real Muslims are like. Just be a real Muslim. Stop apologizing. Someone wants to believe that. Let them believe it.
One of the biggest tragedies, Barbara, from everything that's happened post that, and I feel this for the younger generation, is we've got people now who were born after 9/11, who've grown up after 9/11, and then grown up after 7/7. For us, I think we were still a little bit protected after 9/11. When 7/7 happened, it's on our doorstep, and it was a palpable difference in the way people responded. But the fact that no one's talking about the need for jihad anymore in that sense. You said we could speak about it then, that those people who are in such a dire circumstances, that a group of brothers felt the need to go and help them. And that's been lost. Now we want to, like you're saying, make statistics about everything. We want to talk about, okay, media, we're going to have, this march or something. But going out and helping on the ground in that way, it's kind of been lost from this generation. And in some ways, they've won. And I don't know, maybe we might cut this out later, but if we get a few nutters, I think it's worthwhile, because think of the lives at the other end that have been helped.
But do you get that anymore, though, those lives at the end? Because if you look at Syria, for example, the foreign kind of fighters were kind of just used to start killing each other and all the infighting.
The whole discourse really I don't know what's happened, as in it's been veered off course.
So I don't entirely agree with the...
So has jihad changed?
Well, jihad hasn't changed.
Or the need
never
for
had.
The kind of the way
has
to
it been infiltrated as it's known?
The way to help people who are suffering, has that changed?
So I think so. I don't entirely agree with what Omar, you said there, respectfully. I think so. We're in a different era.
Yeah,
we're in a different era now. And let's say you want to go, and you feel somewhere in some country something is happening. You want to go.
Yeah,
fine. No one can stop you, but know the consequences. So it's know the consequences to yourself in terms of going to prison in terms of the legal legislation, whatever like that. In our time, we sort of found out afterwards, but we were lucky because the law, whatever, was okay. So you can't say, okay, look at this guy, you know, Babar, he went to Bosnia, he went to Chechnya, he went to all of these places, right? And yeah, we should do that, so we should revive that. And looking back, so I don't have any regrets for going to Bosnia or any of the things that I did at that time. I don't have any regrets for it, looking back at it. Would I encourage someone to do that now? Of course not.
No.
Why not?
So because, so for me, it was a very simplistic worldview at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to help Muslims in Bosnia who were being, you know, persecuted by another group of people. And I fought as part of an army, as part of an established army on a battlefield.
What about the Rohingya, for example?
Or if people from Pakistan want to go into Kashmir.
So now the geopolitics are different. So the way I saw it, Serb Orthodox, Serb Christians are doing this to Muslims. That's what I saw. There's also bigger factors as well. So you had, like what happened in the 80s, the Afghanistan war, where you had the USSR, you had the Warsaw Pact, you had the communist bloc. You had this proxy war where the Soviets wanted to give, the Americans wanted to give the Soviets a bloody nose because of what happened in Vietnam. That same thing was happening here. So you had Russia you have these proxy wars.
You end up being pawns for someone else's
So you're doing like that. So that doesn't mean that anyone who went there or who was fought or was killed was, you know, that intention, they are judged by that. But these things, so if you look at the war in Syria, for example, on the face of it, yes, you know, Muslims are being killed by this regime. And then you look behind it, you think, okay, well, what's Iran doing there? Why are you there?
Why is Russia there?
Okay, why is Russia there? Why is, you know, you got all of these different, and the people on the ground are being killed. So, you know, it's like sometimes I'll see on the, on the internet where this guy, he went and he blew himself up in some little hospital waiting room or something like that. Now, what are you going to say to Allah on the Day of Judgment? So Allah is saying, okay, let's put aside your ideology, why you did it, the cause, this, that, whatever. You that person, providing he's not saying, you make that conscious decision that I am going to end my life in this way. And what are you going to say to Allah? That, okay, the life you gave me, I ended it to kill like a couple of housewives and 2 old people in a hospital waiting room. I mean, life has become so, like, does it not have any value anymore? Does it not have any value anymore? I
think it's partly because of the trend in some societies away from sacredness and towards a materialism of just, you know, not having, because the belief that life is sacred is a deeply spiritual and religious thing, right? And according to some people, society is moving away from that kind of.
There's a lack of empathy.
Yeah,
there is, and there's a lack of empathy because real people don't exist. Empathy is about being able to put yourself into the other shoes. I'm able to put myself in Salman Butt's shoes and then try to feel what he's going through. But I can't, because I'm only going to see you on a YouTube channel. And that's one thing that going back again to the 90s, that you didn't have, like nowadays, you can get any clown, and if you can buy followers. And do you want to know how you know if someone's bought followers? It's very easy. You go on a Facebook page, someone has 750,000 followers. So according to the Facebook algorithms, you know more about this than me. Yeah. When you put a post up, Facebook, it only reaches like 2% of those people. So if you got 750,000 people, 2% of that is like what, 15,000 people or something. So you will get about a few thousand likes or comments or whatever.
Yeah.
You got a man with 750,000 followers. He posts something. Hey, this is me, you know, like with my Juma beard or whatever like that. He posts it, and you get like 32 likes. So he's bought those.
Yeah.
You understand? I mean, it's quite sad, but you can buy that. It's easy. You just go online, you pay a few £100, you can buy that. And someone said you got a complete nobodies. In the 90s, you had that as well, where you had nobodies. Yeah. You had a few people that of influence.
Now they've got their own podcast.
But now, so there is some. So there there is some hope in that those psychopaths that you said or in the Muslim community. Alhamdulillah, most of them are on YouTube. Most of them are online, so we know where they are. That's a good thing. You know where they are, so that's where they are.
But Babar, the thing is, look,
just like to just remind everyone to subscribe to Islam21c/YouTube.
Islam21c. These guys, they don't buy their followers, so they're pretty desperate. So hence the appeal.
We're broke, so if you want to donate, so we can buy as well. Something.
I guess what I'm trying to do is because the conversation has moved from the public sphere and moved from the circles and being done in a public way about jihad and the cause, it's now being done by people who aren't, who don't have the license, don't have the education, don't have the background, don't have the scholarship to do it. And this is my problem, that it's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, that I see in the younger generation. I say it like I'm an old person, but there's no desire in any way to even think about jihad and its noble endeavor. It seems to be something, a relic of the past, dare I use those words. That's something very romantic, but there's no connection with it today. And all of the justice and all in its most beautiful form. Taking aside all the craziness, because that's how it's manifested today. And then people are like, well, if you're going to do it, you're a nutter.
Wouldn't jihad mean something else in today in a different context?
So
the jihad of public relations or media or propaganda and
so I think one of the ways to that is a good point, you see, but the reason people don't want to talk about it is understandable, because this is the debate in the public sphere and the label what people have attached to this. This is what people want to. This is what they associate jihad with.
And for people with a vested interest in keeping unjust or injustice kind of prolonged and alive and thriving, they have a vested interest in trying to portray jihad as something bad.
Yeah, of course. But I think one of the things that is important for us to do is go back to the early generations always. And there's one thing that I did, which I sort of did it when I started to practice. I think I first read this book when I was like 12. And there was a series of stories of the companions of the Prophet by Abdul Wahid Hamid. Yeah. And he wrote these 2 books, volume 1, volume 2.
Yeah.
So I think I read that book since when I started to practice. I read that book, and I think I read them almost every year, even in prison when I could. I had those books. I had them sent to me in prison. And almost every year of my life, I read those books, and I tried to align myself. I tried to check myself where I am now compared to those people. You see, one of the problems of following personalities, and in the 90s we had this problem, and I'm sorry to say, if you look at all of these various groups of people who were active in the 90s, so people had their noses broken over discussions, okay? They had noses broken, they had windows smashed, they had tires slashed. These are like people not talking to each other, not saying salam to each other, like all of these. It was like civil war is probably an understatement. It was basically people from outside who have come into this country, who didn't grow up here, who don't have an interest here, who don't have a childhood here, and say, hey, it's halal for you to, you can go and steal from the kuffar, man. You can go and steal, you can go and do credit card fraud. He's going to do it. But now you say, hey, brother, because the regime in Algeria aren't like a proper Islamic regime, can I go there and start robbing from the grocery stores? Then he doesn't like it. Because that's the grocery store owner is probably his uncle's cousin. But coming here, and that concept, so the people who didn't have anything, so all of these fights, and that comes to talking about what we are talking about, the people going abroad in those countries, is the influence of those people, Muslims here in the 90s, were fighting each other physically, hating each other, because some scholar or some person of knowledge from a foreign country has brought that politics and has brought it into London. So me and Salman, we have a dispute, and then we come to blows because Salman says something about Mauritania, and I didn't like it. I probably don't even know where Mauritania is on the map, but yet I'm hating him. This brother who's like my neighbor, I'm hating him because of that. We were pawns.
So importing kind of foreign sectarian or
foreign problem, political problem. So that's why don't just see on the surface, this is what's happening in Syria, this is what's happening in Rohingya. Yes, see it. What is the bigger story? What is the geopolitics of the situation? Yes, help them in whatever way that you can, make sure understand the legal consequences of whatever you're doing. But, try to understand what you're getting into.
I was angry for a long time in that period. If I look back at it, there was a lot of anger, and if you don't know how to manifest it, sometimes it's it's only with I guess maturity and sitting with other people, subhanAllah, and then understanding Islam a bit further, and all the things like you used to teach us as we used in the circle, going back to the Sahaba and these types of things, it helps you deal with it. Otherwise, everything that was going on really in the 90s, and you don't know, there's personalities, you're quoting personalities, you don't know anything about them, and then people are quoting scholars from abroad, they don't know, they're saying these guys are blind followers, but they're blind followers.
I give you an example. Like, you have various websites that answer questions and all that. So I read one of these. I read it myself, where some guy asked a question that one guy goes to a barber's shop, and he told the barber to shave his beard. And then at some point, after the guy shaved his beard, he has this realization that the shaving of the beard is haram. So should he pay the barber? So the response was, I don't know if that question's or the answer's still up there. The response was, the beard is a sunnah and blah, blah, blah. And it therefore, because the barber, he asked him to do something haram for him, it's forbidden for him to pay this. Now, if you're in certain countries or certain parts of the world where you can get authorities to sort of back you up in your position, well and good. Yeah. You try doing that here in Shoreditch, and the guy's going to call the police at you.
Yeah,
I mean, especially in Shoreditch, because Shoreditch, the hipster beard is like quite in, isn't it? So there's a bit more. It's a bit more personal. Farthing. But the point I'm trying to say is that you're giving fatwa about a place you've never been to.
Yeah.
You didn't grow up there. You cannot understand the culture of a place if you did not grow up there. If I go to Malaysia, for example, I live in Malaysia for 15 years. Then after that, I start giving fatwa. I think that the Malay women should do this, and the Malay men, they should do this, and the youth should do this. Someone at some point is going to say to me, bro, who are you? You just been here for like 15 years, and you're like coming and talking about, fine, you've got a lot that we can benefit from, and you can contribute. Come and work with us, but don't come and tell us like this. You don't understand the culture of, you're still an outsider. And that is important for us to remember, because to stop that happening to us again, realize that in the 90s, we were taken for. We allowed ourselves to be taken for fools by other people who had no interest in us. So you find a community in London, for example, and these were good people. A lot of them were reverts. They came from the streets. They came from very difficult backgrounds. They came from the streets, they came to Islam, and instead of teaching these people how a Muslim is, how to be with your wife, how to be with your kids, they're teaching them that this scholar is on bid'ah, and that scholar follows this, and this scholar says that.
This guy's deviant.
Some of those people, they left the deen.
Yeah.
And and one of the challenges is, if you look at some of those personalities, and that's why I always say that take your example from the dead, because you know what they died upon. Yeah. If you're following the living today, those who are alive today, if you're making this guy into your God, what happens if he changes? And a lot of people, they change. A lot of people back in the 90s, and by change, I don't mean maturing. I don't mean, you all sort of change a little bit, mature. I'm meaning you're like, you go from black to white. You like completely 180 degrees. You like switch.
Yeah.
And you start saying, Bosnia, it was wrong. It was an unjust war, for example. And you start coming up with nonsense like that.
Yeah.
Then don't follow the living. Don't be so infatuated with personalities, with scholars, with learn from them, but don't be a blind follower into everything that this people or this person says.
Yeah. So to take it into another direction now, Babar, is that one thing, alhamdulillah, kind of learned from the circles and growing up around that time was this concept of being a man, like this is what men do. And alhamdulillah, it's used in a positive way. You don't fight on the streets.
Before we go into that,
yeah.
I heard you're a man who likes honeys.
You don't need to get honeys for now. We'll do honey after, isn't it?
We need honeys. It's been staring at me now.
You sure?
Mahmoud's keeps giving me signals that
the key word is honey, not honeys. You said something
exactly.
that can be misinterpreted, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm a man who likes honey, yes, not honeys.
But you like different types of honeys,
and you've got 4 honeys.
Okay, so what's the? So
I mean, you started a thing with you have You sell different honeys.
Yeah, anyone who knows me knows that I'm in the honey business. I like to sweeten up people.
Yeah.
So
Mr. B.
I got this
What
test
kind
here.
of honeys do you like?
What type of honeys? Well, obviously,
Different-
I
you'd have different-
obviously like my own honeys, isn't it? I'm not going to.
We like different types of honeys, different colors honeys.
I like the thick ones.
Honeys from honey.
I don't really like
thick
the
honeys.
Yeah, the thick ones.
The honeys
The
from
psychopath honeys.
There's Asian honeys. There's kind of South American honeys.
Yeah, obviously, I like the South American one. They're the best
Okay.
in the world. So, that's pretty subjective.
Okay.
So I've got here, they're going to put me to this test. It's like
Okay.
the Coke.
This
the
is a
Coke and
blind test for all of
the
us.
Pepsi challenge, yeah? So
Pepsi
what
challenge.
are we supposed to do then?
I think one of these is poison. Just kidding.
So just basically, so we'll just mention this part. So, okay, so I want you to taste each one. I want you to guess.
This is classy, Mahmoud.
Identify in order which is the best one, which is the worst one. Yeah, and if you can, from which continent the
Okay.
honey comes from.
Which
Identify
continent
the best and worst.
or which suburb of London?
Yeah, maybe.
Identify best to worst.
Yeah.
Well,
What are you
there's
saying?
okay. Well, there's
Yeah, this
like
one.
4 of these. Okay,
All
let's
right.
try
This
it
is
then.
A.
So someone explain.
Go on.
That, please, yeah? Yeah, so they mark A, B, C, D.
So we're gonna mark these best to worst and try and
right.
identify the origin.
So this one.
There
So
are-
one of the key things with honey is you smell it first before you taste it. So it should have a smell. Every real honey has a smell. So this thing, it doesn't even have a smell. So I'm not expecting much
I'm
when I
not
taste it.
as experienced with the honeys as you are.
Yeah, it's got a very acidic taste.
Yeah, I was
not
about to say
too,
that.
not too good. Okay, let's have a look at this.
You need
Also,
like something to
to neutralize the palate.
neutralize the palate. Yeah.
This tastes
Tasting
budget,
honey, it's like it's a bit like tasting wine. You see, halal wine, non-alcoholic. Don't like before I get a fatwa to
Very
strike
nice.
me down.
I'll have
Yeah.
the bottle.
Why do we use wooden spoons? Maybe you can tell us that, Barbara.
Old,
Or wooden
old,
spatulas, yeah.
old wives' tales.
Ah. These guys thought they're being well technical. Oh, yeah,
This-
we'll go get wood
this-
so it
this-
looks
this-
authentic.
This is the cheapest. These coffee stories are the cheapest. You got them from that Quaker bubble shop there next door. Okay, so these are.
There's a shot glass from shortage.
Oh, this one has pieces in it.
What? No,
C. Number C has pieces.
it's not meant to. Where does that come from?
I'm gonna just munched as well.
B's definitely better than A, man.
I'm already on D, bruv. Slow, guys. Oh, this does not look like honey. I think this looks like Babar Ahmad's honey.
What is
It's like
it?
running.
Mention that.
D does not taste nice, so that
Haha, you gave him the one that didn't have honey in it, isn't it?
that must mean it's really like posh honey that only those who
Honey-
acquired the taste can enjoy.
Honey is the world's 3rd most faked food.
Really?
90% of honey that is in the supermarkets is fake. Most honey that is sold, it's unfortunately it's fake. How do you spot real
I've acquired
honey?
the taste now.
There people got all these like different tests. You get it and you put the like lighter on it, and then you like see some like. I mean, it's quite simple. A lot of it's to do with trust. It's a bit like halal. You go to some shop and there's some guy there, right, saying, "Brother, is it halal?" He goes, "Kull halal, alhamdulillah, kull halal, everything halal."
Assalamu alaikum.
You don't get those vibes,
Yeah.
and you go to
Like he
another
says,
place,
halam, halam, halam.
yeah. Or you go to another place where it's just the vibes. It's like who you're getting it from, and you see his
But
certificate.
halal is
displayed.
quite easy. To tell if something's halal, then something you eat and you're not sinful. So I think
All right.
D is the fanciest because I don't like it, and I'm a simpleton. I like my
Where do you think it's
Tesco's budget, no frills honey.
from? Which country do you think it's from?
I don't know. I don't want to be racist or anything. I'll say Pakistan.
I see two, honey.
C, it's got bits in it, so that seems fancy. Unless someone went, out of their way to kind of
What
add
is-
bits of something.
What? Your one's got bits in it. No one else's.
Mine's
has.
got loads of bits. Look, let's get.
No, it's not meant to have any bits in it.
Look at that.
No, they're not meant to have
Well, I'm not the one who put it here, man. It's,
I don't know where that's come
Unless somebody sneezes, I sneeze near it, and
I'm not gonna kill you. Sorry.
All right. It's
it's proper beehive, bee wax.
which one's your favorite, Babar?
Definitely B. So I think all of them, they got high humidity because once you sort of, you can tell that they're just a bit.
Yeah, there's a bit humid.
A doesn't have a smell at all. D even looks like it's got very high humidity. Might have even fermented a bit. It's got that slight smell.
Man.
But B,
Driving home.
B in terms of taste, B definitely is the.
It's a very light taste.
It's the
isn't it?
tastiest for me. B, and it also has the best
It's
aroma.
got a fruity taste.
So I'd
Yeah.
say B, then C, then A, then D. But
Yeah,
that's
I
for
was
me personally.
Where would you think they're from?
Where they think they're from, I wouldn't have a clue, man.
The
I'm not
Tesco's.
like, I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. But B is the one that I like most out of these. I wouldn't have a clue. I mean, where they're from. I mean,
Okay, for me, C.
I can't recognize.
I
any
think
of them.
C. I will say C bad. Yeah. Oh, C bda.
So like me, but with B and C
CBDA.
swapped over.
CBDA. I think C is from a small mountain village in southern Spain called Mijas. Looks like, I think. D is definitely from a small little hamlet at the foot of the Himalayas, if I'm not mistaken.
Wait, and I'll tell
See
you
the
where A is
humidity?
from.
See the humidity?
A is from.
Cosca.
No. A is the most genuine Sikh kebab honey made from the dustbins behind the alley behind Dawat restaurant on Tooting High Street. It's got that authentic local honey like flavor to it.
Oh,
Bees there. The bees there are.
Yeah, man.
I've been eating.
I was undecided
kebab.
between B and C, and I liked C because it was light, but B because it's slightly thicker. It just felt more like honey to me. So B tipped it for me over C. B, C.
Okay, put us out of our misery. What you've got the answers there,
All right.
haven't you?
Obviously, no one wants to know. All right, I'm gonna read them out. I'll start with A. A is
Tesco's.
best honey, i.e., cheap.
Yes,
What? As in, yeah.
I got that right.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
B.
wrong
B
I love
is the Rouse organic, not raw, unknown origin of honey.
Okay.
All right.
B.
C was organic Mexican honey raw.
Oh, is that what I said?
No, you
Mexican,
didn't.
yeah.
Whatever,
Okay.
Mexican.
Mijas.
And
Mijas.
D was organic Ethiopian honey.
Ethiopian.
I didn't like that.
You're racist.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Alhamdulillah.
Everyone's a bit racist, but
All
you
right.
can cut that bit
Okay.
out.
Fine. So we've solved that now.
Yeah.
Back to the more serious
Can I
topic.
have some water, please? That's
Why?
nasty taste from out there. I'm not a honey fan.
You obviously haven't had Babar's honey.
Oh yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
I haven't.
Haven't you really?
No. And my
I would say-
wife bought a bunch of them.
I love the packaging as well, mashallah. It's a lot of attention to detail. Good. Alhamdulillah.
We're trying to do it properly.
Yeah, it's good. It's
Trying
good.
to do it properly. We're not doing it like the read Surah Yasin and try to get it through the green channel. You know, try to cash in on those Hajj and Umrah du'as where you get some like load of honey and bring it through and package it.
Pooked on by the local.
I think it's a lot of hot air.
Yeah.
Exactly. Chalo. So the point I was making before, Varvai, was that
Rujula.
yeah.
Man, what is man?
At
what
that
is
time, there was a definition, and I was saying that at the time, alhamdulillah, the brothers who were going were always an example that they weren't going out of some street rep, but they were going to do something good. And this is the definition of a man, someone who took responsibility, someone who looked out for others. Okay, this is how he understood. Then there was a period, and I guess when you were actually in prison as well, by the way, that kind of message got lost, and there was a little this street element of what it meant to be a Muslim came in. Yeah, it culminated in two brothers getting killed in Tooting High Street. But there was this overt thing about being practicing, but being street as well. Fast forward a little bit now, and you know, you've got the rise of the metrosexual. You've got guys who don't know if they're girls and girls who don't know if they're guys. And this concept of being a man, I don't know, it just seems.
Come on, man, just because I moisturize. So.
Yeah, it's a
your
huge
pores.
question mark. So for someone like yourself, Barbara, who's gone through that, alhamdulillah, where you went out, saw these war zones, when that came back, and then went through prison, and then subsequently how you dealt with the aftermath of it. What's your take on this?
So first of all, the most perfect example of a man, of a rajul, is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah.
You know, there's no question about that. And we talk about the brave or the robust side of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the fearless, courageous side of him, but we don't see his soft side as well.
Yeah.
And that is, so one of the difficulties we have now is this concept of somehow you gotta, and they have this in the army as well, that you gotta man it up.
Yeah.
Like just man up. So man up has no basis in our deen. Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was your most difficult day?
Yeah.
What was your most difficult day? And he didn't say, oh, you know, all of it is a test from Allah, you know, alhamdulillah, you know, and Allah gives and we accept. He didn't go into all of this nonsense.
Yeah.
He said the day of Ta'if. And so he understood. He didn't tell her off for asking that. He knew what she's asking. What is the hardest day on you personally? Yeah. He didn't start going into a lecture and about Allah. You know, he said that was the most difficult day for me. And then he spoke about his dua. And if you look at his dua, he's complaining to Allah. This man, this rajul, is complaining to Allah about how he feels. He is articulating his emotions. So this is something that we have lost. And that's a reason why you have so many mental health problems, so many instances of domestic violence among so-called practicing people, is because men, it's a taboo to express your emotions.
They've taken on maybe stereotypical notions about masculinity from other cultures and stuff.
It's to say that oh, you know, anyone, and I say this to you, and I put this challenge out there. I say this to you from someone who did 11 years in 10 different prisons, in 2 countries. Anyone who comes and says to you, I did time in prison or custody, and alhamdulillah, you know, it's okay, and I wasn't affected, you know, on a hadith, and I'm like, all of this, right? That person is not being honest. He is not being honest. And these are things that we need to talk about these things. So instead of giving a beautiful story, let me talk about myself.
Yeah.
You know, let me talk about myself. So manhood is to accept, is not to deny your vulnerabilities or your weaknesses or your challenges. It's to accept them, because then you can correct them. You can do something about them.
Yeah.
So I was subjected to an assault by the police, which lasted about, I mean, you can read the story, it's online, I won't bore you with the details. 40 minutes of physical, verbal, religious and sexual abuse, which the Metropolitan Police Commissioner here accepted. Lasted about 45 minutes or so. And so as a result of that, I sustained PTSD, some post-traumatic stress disorder. And then I went into prison for 11 years, and I was isolated for 5 years, complete isolation for 2 years. So that affects you. So me, before I came, you know, my final year, before I came back, or in the few years, 2-3 years before I came home from prison, I had planned that I'm going to, when I come out, I want to get therapy. And while everyone was, no, I'm just going to read Quran, I'm just going to have sabr. Yeah, I did all of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to get therapy, because trauma is an injury.
If you had a broken arm, no one would think twice saying go to the doctor or whatever.
If you break your arm, it's an injury. You go to the hospital, you ask the doctor to fix it.
Yeah.
Now you can read Quran on it before, during and afterwards, but no one is going to say just read Quran on it and it's going to be okay. So trauma is an injury, it's a psychological injury. So you've been affected. So for example, I came home from prison and I've got I had a very light sleep. So I'm sleeping next to a window, there's a curtain. If I hear a noise like this, or I hear some people talking, or I hear like a car door, straight away I'm up, I open the curtain, and then I look just to check that nothing is there. And then I go back to sleep. And this is happening 12 times in the night. This is happening. And then I had this state of what they call hypervigilance, where I'm walking through the underground, like I'm walking in a US federal prison, for example, which you have to be because you're in constant survival mode in those things. So
physiologically, your hormone levels, your brain chemistry as well, everything they actually change.
Yes, absolutely.
And you have to work to undo some of that damage.
That's right. So when I came back, straight away I went to my doctor and I said, okay, I want some therapy. I'm not looking for medication, but I want some therapy that will help to address some of these issues that I'm having.
Yeah.
NHS, sorry to say, they didn't even send me an acknowledgement. But then Hugs Charity stopped. They stepped in, and may Allah reward them. They said, look, we've got a pot of money. We got a specific budget to help people with therapy when they come out of prison. But it's unused. No one wants to use it because everyone's alhamdulillah, I had sabr, I just read Quran and all of this stuff, right? So that's the outward. And then you ask their families.
Yeah.
And this guy is like smashing things. He's going crazy. He's like, so what's going on? But it's that front. I remember there was one brother that I spoke to, and he spent some time in custody, and I was speaking to him about getting therapy and all that. He said, I do have issues, and I agree I should get this therapy, but one of the concerns for me is that us who came out of prison and who came out of custody, people see us as like role models and heroes. Yeah. And I don't want to like break that image, even if it means personally that I need to have a price for it. So this goes on to that thing that you're talking about. Is it's not a weakness, it's a challenge. So anyway, so I went through, so Hugs put me in touch with they arranged therapy for me, and I went through about 15 to 20 sessions of therapy with a man by the name of Professor Ian Robbins, who was an expert in war, torture, and detention. And there's actually, he's died of cancer 2 years ago, but there's actually a conversation between me and him on YouTube. You will find that. Really? But I just want to give one example to illustrate this point. So what happened is I'm going through this therapy, and after about 15 sessions, he said, next week, bring something to record with. So I brought something to record with. He goes, now, close your eyes and talk me through this assault on you in real time, like it's happening now, and describe the temperature in the room, the texture on the carpet when your face is on the carpet, the accents of the officers. Just talk it through. Close your eyes and just talk it through till you get to the end, no matter how long it takes. So bear in mind, before I did this, I testified about this assault in court for 3 days. I've spoken about it to lawyers many times. I've given statements. I've told prisoners about it when I was living, I was comfortable with it. It's not like emotions are coming out that have never come out again. Yeah. Okay, I've done all that. So I closed my eyes and I sat and I started talking about this happens. Yeah, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. The alarm goes off and I hear a bang. And so I'm like going through all of these details. And at some points, I started breathing a little bit deeply, feel a bit uncomfortable, but I go through it and finished it. It took 22 minutes. When I opened my eyes, from that point and for the next 3 days, my wrist began to hurt. SubhanAllah. Because the brain unlocked that pain that was locked in there. And one thing Ian Robbins, he said to me, he said, emotions, they have to be released before they can be healed. So by me, it actually physically hurt. Okay, that's the link. People are saying, it's all in the mind. No, it's not all in the mind. So one of the things I'd encourage that anyone amongst yourselves, trauma can be inherited. It can be inherited by behavior, not genetically. It can be inherited. So you may have like our parents maybe who made hijrah from India to Pakistan, then they came from Pakistan to England, for example, and they were affected. They went through a number of traumas, and that's been passed down through their behavior. So 2-3 generations on, people who never lived through a war or any type of migration are suffering these effects of it. So one of the difficulties, the challenges that we have is someone who has mental health problems or someone who has depression, it's because your iman is low. Yeah. And come on, going back to the Asr and Maghrib, if I came and said, okay, I, Babar Ahmad, I gave this fatwa that you can join Asr with Maghrib, the first question people of knowledge are going to say to me, who the hell are you? Have you had any proper formal Islamic instruction? Do you know everything? So likewise, with respect, if you are a person of knowledge, but you haven't studied psychology, you're not a trained or registered psychologist, someone who comes to you and he's depressed or he has anxiety, don't say to him that your iman is low. Don't say to him that start reading Quran. Before you diagnose, you've given him an answer. Get help. Therapy was the best thing. And I've seen other brothers who came out of prison, they are still suffering years on. Me, alhamdulillah, I still have some issues. A lot of them have been resolved and I'm much better than I was. It's like a constant struggle and challenge. But that therapy that hugs helped me to get, it really like it helped me to like get from like 0 to like 75% of like functionality.
Wow.
And it's something I feel strongly about. And for women, they find it easy to talk about.
Yeah.
But guys, man up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna say.
That is
Man
manning
up.
up. That's the real manning up.
Admit
real
your
one, yeah.
challenges, your vulnerabilities. I get angry too much. I can't sleep.
Yeah.
I'm anxious all the time, right? I don't know why I'm feeling like this.
I'm a workaholic.
Get help.
Maybe you know what that feels like one day, Salman. No, really, Jazakumullah khair. I think, can't say thank you enough for that. And speaking, you're right. This manly thing is that you don't speak to people. I find it very difficult. Husband and wife sometimes, and really the Prophet always used to speak to his wife. We forget that.
And then things like crying for the sake of Allah, hearing the Quran, crying. Culture today,
people do that.
Yeah.
They do that.
Yeah.
But they don't do the other thing because they think, okay, I'm crying to Allah. That's different. But talking to someone else, I remember when I was in prison, is when something would bother me, I'll just knock on the brother's door and say, brother, I said, I'm really down today, man. Come on, just tell me something to like cheer me up. And he'd tell me something, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I would benefit instead of just trying to like hold it together, and like, you got these brothers who are saying, yeah, man, I'm strong. I'm made out of iron and like nothing affects me. And then you see him like crying on the phone to his family, right? Or you see him like with bags under his eyes because he can't sleep. Who are you kidding? Man, we're all going through it. We're all human, man. If you're finding it difficult, say it.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm finding it difficult, man. I'm finding it difficult to cope. I don't know where my life is. What heading? Articulate it and get help.
The relief you feel as soon as you've spoken. I don't know. In the past, something happened with me, and I went to see a therapist as well. There was just one conversation, but the moment I spoke, I just felt like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. He didn't say anything that was different or anything that I didn't know. In fact, he just kind of listened and nodded his head. But I just felt such a sense of relief at the end of it. SubhanAllah. Just being able to speak and articulate it.
There's so many lessons you have to share from your experience. I wish we could carry on, but we have to unfortunately wrap up. But alhamdulillah, I hope you'll join us again. Won't take you another few months to. We'll start getting Mahmoud to start bugging you a few months in advance.
I think the tapioca tea did it. Because I was trying not to come again. So.
Are you going to write a book about your experiences?
Inshallah, I have been writing, for a while. It's difficult with everything else I got going on. So I sort of, I'm at some point, inshallah.
We'll definitely, inshallah, have you on again. We'll keep bugging you again. But Jazakumullah khairan for coming. Jazakumullah khairan, Umar. Jazakumullah khairan for tuning in. If you like this podcast, give it a like and a share. Get involved in the conversation with some comments and let us know your thoughts. Again, reminder, we're on all the podcast platforms, anywhere you get your podcasts, inshallah. iTunes, iOS, Google Play Store, Castbox, Spotify, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, please do tune in for the next episode, and Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. If you're ever in East London, around Brick Lane, make sure you drop by Quaker Street Coffee and Bubble Tea for some wonderful tea and coffee. Quote the Islam 21C Unscripted podcast and you'll get 10% off. Unscripted.